Hello and welcome back to Angie B Crafts. So today I am doing a video of my Angie B and Dawn D craft collaboration, and this month Dawn has set the challenge. Now she's really organised because I was recording last month's video and this stuff arrived, so I've had it for ages. I've done nothing with it. So I'm doing it today. This is the lovely card that she sent me. She's used some of the JMC Designs papers to just make a little card with my instructions in it. So basically, she sent me so much stuff. I can't believe how much stuff's here. Right, so we've got several pages out of a book, which looks really interesting. And I want to say that word. I've just seen that word there. Blauwildbeestefontein. Oh, there you go. I've not read that book anyway. Right, I'm getting distracted. So we've got this. We have a lovely piece of orange corrugated card, 2 sheets of paper which have got embossed cogs and penny farthings on them, which are rather nice. Rather nice. Our substrate is this nice chunky piece of MDF, good and chunky. And then I have this bag of goodies. I'm just going to flip this over to show you these and pour them all out. She sent so much stuff. I can't believe what I've got. It's like, yay, party time. So we have a fabulous heart that says love. This lovely little it's like the beer mat material. I'll use a knife to cut that out, but this is a beautiful, beautiful flower. A couple of keys. Keys are always good. A butterfly, another heart. Oh, got a few butterflies. Fabuloso. Then we have these handmade signs, which I'm not going to use all of these on one thing, but I am going to use them on quite a few projects. Thank you very much. Look at them all. She's so generous. Oh, right, now we have these. So these are, I think they're a very thin metal. They might be plastic, I'm not sure. Oh no, I think they're plastic. I'm not sure if they're plastic or metal. I'm not going to analyse it too much. But we've got those. We've got this, which is like a pendant thing that you can do jewellery stuff in, and I'm already thinking that I can put that in and use some resin over it or something for something else. Anyway, lovely little light bulb charms. Look at these, and then a big one. Isn't that just so cute? Oops, I love it. It's like a worry bead kind of thing. I like that. Oh, another one of the pendant things that we can fill in. Oh, and another one of those. Oh, look at these scissors. Aren't they cute? They're just fab. Oh, this. See, this is me through and through. It's cogs. Right, I love that. Some more smaller cogs. Bigger cogs even, not small cogs. They're the small ones, they're the big ones. And then here is, I'm thinking that's another piece for making a pendant with. I'm not sure. So yeah, that's what I've got to work with. So our substrate is this piece of MDF, and the instructions I have are make a piece of art onto the MDF piece using the different bits and bobs in the pack. In addition, we can use black gesso, which I have here, and metallic acrylics in copper, silver and gold, which I happen to have. Result, and one other acrylic paint of my choosing. Now I've not chosen that yet because I don't know what way it's going to go. Then we can have a one-word stamp from our own stash for the sentiment. So I need to find, I've got one in mind that I'm thinking of, but I've not quite decided, and an ink pad to stamp that with. So if I've got an ink pad there, I might have to use it in other ways. We shall see. And a piece of card can be used to stamp the sentiment. That's because I don't let her have a piece of card, so she's being kind to me. I mean, this is just an amazing stash, but I have no idea what I'm going to do with it. So where do we start? I'm going to start painting this. So I'm going to move the papers out of the way and all these bits. Let me just find a tub. Now I did have a tub somewhere. Oh, there it is. I'm just going to put all these bits into this tub just so that I know where they are, rather than popping them back into the bag. These tubs are brilliant. I've got loads of them in my craft room. I've discovered them at B&M Bargains and they're brilliant. I've got this size, I've got smaller ones, I've got wider ones, I've got shallower ones. Brill. But that's by the by. Right, move that paper out of the way, and then I'm just going to start off with a base layer of black gesso. Right, get my raggy to hand, because I always need a raggy nearby. Get my brush, which of course has been left in my paint pot, because hey, why would I want to look after brushes? One day I might actually decide to look after them. That day isn't today though. Okay, right, I do like this gesso, but it shoots out really fast and forgets to stop pouring. It's a strange one. It's a Pebeo Studio Acrylics. It was the first black gesso I ever owned actually, and I've still got it. It's still the same bottle. Right, there's a chunk there, so I'm just going to remove that. If in doubt, wipe it on my pinny. Now I do have crafting jumpers that I wear, so the sleeves tend to be a little bit covered in whatever, paints, texture pastes, all sorts, inks, everything. But then I put a pinny on as well, so I've got several different pinnies. The one I've got on at the minute is actually the one that my son had when he was at school doing cookery, so that's, I've had that a good few years, haven't I? Oops, sorry, caught the camera there. And I just love having a pinny on because I just wipe everything, but then I forget sometimes that I haven't got a pinny on and I'm getting into the habit of wiping stuff thinking, oops, that isn't actually on a pinny, that's just on the clothes, which isn't the best. So yeah, this gesso has a life of its own. I like the coverage it gives. It's a true black, so that's what I like about it, but coming out of the bottle is a bit of a pain in the bum, truth be told. It just shoots out. It's as if it's possessed. Let me out, I need to create. Right, just trying to paint around all these edges. I'm not worried about the back, but I do want the sides to be black as well. I still find it amazing how often I use black in projects, because in real life I don't do black at all. I'm just thinking, I don't even think I currently have a black pair of shoes. You'd think most people would have a black pair of shoes, wouldn't you? I don't think I have at the minute. I've got purple shoes and grey shoes and yellow shoes and white shoes and red shoes and flowery shoes, but I haven't got black shoes. I sound slightly insane with all those different coloured shoes, don't I? Right, oh, that was a bit much, never mind. We'll stick a little bit extra on top just to make sure we've got a good thick black base layer, because then everything else is going to go on top. Now I am going to be painting over some of the other stuff as well, but what I'm thinking is, if we have a black base layer, gesso is a slightly thicker type of acrylic than a standard acrylic. It's designed to act almost like a base coat, so it's going to enable me to then put other things on top of it, like other colours, without it going shoosh into the wood. Oh. Right, I now have this lovely matte finished black piece of MDF, and I also have slightly cleaner hands because I did actually go and wash them. What I'm going to do now is, just because I'm wanting some colour on the back of this, before I put anything else on, I'm going to use some of my metallics. So I need a slightly smaller brush. This one will do. It's actually dry, it's amazing. And I'm just going to dry brush a couple of bits of this. So with dry brushing, you need a titchy tiny bit of paint. You need, as the name suggests, a dry brush. Now it doesn't have to be totally bone dry. You can get away with a brush that's been sitting in a pot of water, so don't panic if you do have, like me, a stash of brushes which are sitting in water. The term dry brush is actually referring to the amount of paint you have on it. So you want a very tiny amount, and you don't want it to be absorbing up into here. You want it just on the tips, so that as you brush over, the colour is just transferring ever so gently. If you put it up here, you're gonna get a layer that looks more like this. So what I tend to do is have a raggy or a piece of kitchen towel or something at the side of me, and when I'm going to dry brush, I start off just putting a little bit, and you literally just want about that far up your brush. You don't need it very far up your brush at all. And then I'm just going to dab a bit off. So you put it on and then take it off, and I'm actually going to go in the opposite direction to what I did with the black, because then it's going to pick up some of the texture from the black. So I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm not overloading the brush. I'm then dabbing off some of it and then starting to add on. Now, there's not a lot of texture here because we've just painted it flat, but it is already starting to pick up some of that texture, which is kind of what we're after. So we'll do a little bit more. I think I put it out a bit too much of the gold. Looking at how much of the copper I'm using, I think there's way too much gold there. But the thing with dry brushing is you build it up gradually as well. You don't want to put on loads and loads at one time. So you add a little bit and then add the next little bit. And it may be that in some areas you still end up with it quite thick, but that's because you're choosing for it to be that thick. So you start off really thinly. So that's the copper on. So we've got some areas where it's a little bit thicker, but you can start to see that's getting a bit glistening. Oh, that's a good one. You can see the glisten there, but it still looks a bit stark. So I'm just going to stick a little bit more of the copper on. And then I'm just going to move along to the next colour, but I'm going to then go the opposite way. I'm not bothering cleaning my brush because I'm putting it on the same areas, so it doesn't matter. And there's that little on the brush. You're not really going to pick any up anyway of the old colour. And I'm just putting this a bit more randomly. So you can see what I'm tending to get is where I'm initially putting it down, I'm getting a slightly thicker amount of paint. So that's just because I'm overloading the brush a little bit. So I'm just going to take off a little bit more before I come in, and then you start to see you get it clearer. There we go. Right, that's our silver. I've got too much there, but I'm going to be covering that probably with paper, so I'm not worried. But I'm purposely not thinking, oh, that's where I'm putting paper at this point, because this is my background. I just want to make it, and then if I decide to put things over the top, then I can. The other thing to think about, see, I'm doing all three here. This isn't like me, I don't usually use so many different metallics. The other thing that you can think about is when you're holding your brush, when you paint normally, let me grab a piece of paper, here's a piece of paper. When you paint normally, you kind of drag the brush, so I'm bending the bristles. So to get that paint to transfer, I bend the bristles. When you're dry brushing, you can even choose to hold your brush higher just to prevent you from putting as much stress on the brush, because you don't want that pressure. Okay, so you're just holding your brush very lightly. Obviously I'm not knocking this off first onto here, but it's really, really gentle holding of your brush, so don't be overzealous with your pressure, because that's when you start getting it where you don't want it, or getting it thicker than you want it. I'm quite liking how that's looking, you know. I think the copper's my favourite. I'm going to go back in with a little bit more of the copper. There we go. These paints that I'm using are from apparently the Little Craft Corner. Now I know for a fact I got them in the works. Cheap and cheerful metallic paints. I've had them for ages. Couldn't tell you when I got them, but I've had them a good while, and they just do what I want them to do. When I first got them I thought, oh, they're tiny little tubes, but to be honest, when I use metallic paint I never use a lot of it, so they're actually quite a good size, because if you get your paints in too big of a tube and then you don't use them, they just end up wasted, because paints have an expiration on them. Once you open them and start using them and you've let that air in, they start immediately beginning to want to dry up. So you just need to think about that. It's like, if you get a big tube, are you going to use it all? I have been known, on occasion, I try and avoid it, but on occasion I have been known to throw paints out just because they've dried up. But on that note, I did actually get some paint. It was actually one of the distress paints. It was the first one I ever bought of them, because I hadn't had any of them before, and I got one probably about 6 months ago, and when it came it was thick and gloopy and horrible, so I contacted the company who'd bought it from and said, this is how it's come, and they just said, well, we can't do anything about it because all the ones we've got are exactly the same, so we'll refund you, keep your paint. It's like, okay then. Right, this is actually really nicely matching in with the colour of that copper. That looks kind of cool together. So how do I want this? So I really want to include these book pieces. Oh, right, I'm going to do some messing with the book now. Pop that out of the way. She hasn't said I can't use water, because you kind of use, I'm going to use water. Right, I'm going to spray it. I don't know if this will work. I'm just really watering down this paint now, and just using bits of it to colour this up. Adding lots and lots of water. So when this dries, it's still going to have the metallic look to it, but it looks quite matte when you put it on when it's this wet. So as you can see, I've just mixed all the colours together. I'm not being remotely precious about this, and I don't know if this is going to work, but we'll find out. Right, give it a good soak and then screw it up. Something so satisfying about screwing up a piece of paper like this with the intention of using it to create with. I don't know why, I just really love doing it. It doesn't have to be book paper, it's any paper. Just screwing it up like that, you sometimes get like a feeling of, well I do, a feeling of guilt almost. It's like, I just screwed up some paper. But I love it, I love the effect of it. And she hasn't said I can't use glue, or I can use glue, but I'm assuming I can, because it's things have to be stuck on. So we're going to say yes to glue. Right, I like how that's looking, so I'm thinking that's going to be somewhere on there. Oh, okay. Just had a little bit of an idea. Right, gotta add some more copper in. Can you tell I'm liking the copper today? I'm having a copper day. I purposely don't plan what I'm doing in these. I don't know what Dawn does with hers. Might be interesting to find out actually, if she plans ahead and then, or has any sort of vague idea. But I literally have had a look at this a couple of times, and gone, what am I going to do? But I hadn't planned anything because I think it's better to just see what happens on the day. Right, so I've no idea where this is going to go, but I've got an idea in my head now that maybe we're going to end up with some sort of weird landscape. That's kind of floating about in my head. So this, with this behind it, or in front, I'm thinking, right, hang on, bring this down so it's on camera, Angela. Yeah, right, I'm going to go for it. Grab some scissors and just going to very roughly draw on here. Something like that, just to give me something to cut along really. Not particularly accurately sticking to it, it's just as a rough idea. Not at all where I thought this was going. So yeah, as I was saying, I don't plan these because I just think it's better to see how it goes. It's much more fun to not have a clue what you're going to do. I think so anyway. Right, that's too high up, I don't want to cover so much, so let's just cut a piece off. And it also makes it a little bit rougher because we've cut instead of having that perfect piece at the bottom. And then, yeah. Just going to cut another piece of this. The amount of stuff that Dawn has sent is amazing, and I really don't know, well, I know for a fact I'm not going to use it all, not in this project. Right, so something like that, and then I'm thinking these can be behind. Right. My thought with this, which is maybe slightly nuts, is that maybe we cut out some penny farthings and they're gonna be on here, and then we can have magical butterflies which we can colour up. There's the rest of the butterflies. There's the rest of the butterflies. So we've got 3 lovely little butterflies. And I think because it's wacky, we need a few wacky bulbs in there as well. Or could the bulbs be the plants on the hill? The trees. Oh, yes. So they're the trees. This can be the sun. I'm really liking this. Or I could have a butterfly actually on the sun, because it's a fantasy world, so it's not going to get burned. Right. Okay. It's going to be something like this. What I'm going to do is cut out some of those penny farthings and see whether that concept's going to work. So I'll cut them out and then I will come back to you. Right, I've cut out these 2 penny farthings, which are rather cool. I've still, even though I've seen people get off and on penny farthings, I still find it utterly amazing. So what I'm going to do is to take away some of the starkness. I've just added a little bit more water to my paint blobs. I'm just going to whiz this over. Now this could go horribly wrong. I'm going to put it on and then I'm going to pretty much immediately take it off. So we've just taken some of that starkness away. So I'm going to do the same on the other one. So this is really, really watered down. This is not remotely thick, but it's just meaning we've not got pure white. Oops, sorry, it just knocked a light. Yeah, I'm into knocking things, aren't I? Knocking them all over today. Knocking them all over. Right, so if I lift these up, if you leave them sitting where you've just put the paint on them, what can happen is, because the paint is over the edges, they can stick. So just if you're doing something like this, just move them from where they were before they dry, because otherwise there's a chance that they're going to stick. So I'll just clean this up. And particularly if it's something like this, because it's so fine, it would be so easy for it to rip if it was stuck. Right, I'm going to give these a very quick blast and then we'll start doing some of the assembly. I'm really conscious with this that it's not taking as long as usual, but I'm actually really liking what I'm making. And I'm wondering if maybe I need to thicken this up. Not sure. Right, so now they're dried off pretty much, pop them to one side, and I am actually now going to dry off this other paper as well, because we don't want it to be wet when we put it on. We want it to look how it's going to look when we actually put it onto the paper, board even. I know what I mean. I love the smell you get off books. When you use old books, and any books that I use, they're always old books that are past their best. I don't know what these ones are like, but they seem to have that same smell. When you heat them up, they give off a really nice, to me it's a comforting smell of old books. It's rather nice. Right, some glue. We need a little bit of glue so that we can start sticking things on. So I'm just using my Cosmic Shimmer just because it was to hand. Because this is crumpled, I'm not going to get absolutely every little bit of it stuck down, but that's fine because it's meant to be textured hills in the background, so it's not going to be perfect. Next one, same concept. Not worried if it's not all stuck down. I don't anticipate it would all stick down, because there's lots of little bits. We'll have that one slightly in front, like so, and then this one at the end, something like that. And just remember with things like this, when you put it together, you can still change your mind, because you can just stick other things over the top if you need to. So don't feel terrified of committing. It doesn't matter if you want to stick something else over the top, or if you want to slightly adjust it. If you want slightly longer to play with it, use something like a gel medium, because gel medium will stay wetter for longer, so you've got more play time with whatever you're using. This is quite a quick grab glue, which means that it actually sticks the pieces of paper to each other quite quickly, and if you then try and pull it apart, you're going to be ripping the paper and the wood and things. So I would say if you're concerned about placement, use a gel medium instead. This is totally away from anything I would normally do. And I'm thinking I might want to add a little bit more texture at the front. I want to put some texture onto here for definite, so I need to get on. What colour should we do? Oh, I wonder if we could do a little bit of black. Put that out of the way, Angela, because you're going to start getting tempted to use that and you don't want to. So I'm thinking a little bit of my gesso, maybe. Oh, there we go, we've got a little. I told you this thing blobs out of its own accord. It's alive. Right, so I'm just wanting to do a little bit of dry brushing. I'm going to chop a bit of this off and do a trial piece. And don't ever be afraid to try something out before you do it for real. And see if you like it, because if you don't like it, you don't have to use it. I think that's going to look alright, actually. I'm going to go for it. And I'm thinking, while we've got this black paint, I want to put some of it onto this. So I'm going to do the same sort of thing. When I'm going over here, I've just got my raggy on this side now, so I'm just rubbing off onto my raggy there. That's all I'm doing. So I'm putting this black over the top. It's bringing this away from the colour it currently is, but some of that coming through. And then I'm thinking I might just add some of the copper over the top. Should we try that? Because the thing with using this is we can, if we want to, we can wash it off. So I'm just using bits of it over the top. Oh, I think that looks better. I liked it before, but I think I like it more now. So we've still got some of its original colour coming through, we've got some of the black coming through, and we've got some of that copper coming through. So it's just making it, the black's going to have made it quite flat, so I'm trying to get rid of most of the black, but trying to still allow some of the original colour to come through. What I'm also going to do is just use my raggy just in little bits to just pull off some of the colour, so we're getting a bit more of that original colour coming through. Just all adds interest. I do find myself saying that a lot in videos. It adds a little bit of interest, but I think that's what it's all about. It's about drawing the eye to something that's going to, that the eye wants to look at, and that is done by giving it something interesting to look at. Okay, so that will be dry shortly. Let's think about how we're going to lay this out. I do like the idea that these are trees, but I'm thinking maybe I need another layer. Why not? Oh, we could introduce some more of that at the front. That'd be good, wouldn't it? And for this one, I'll get another piece of this paper, and I'm just going to be a bit brutal with this one. Use my paintbrush. I'm just going to blob it in here. This has been watered down several times, remember, but I'm also going to just squirt lots and lots of water on it and then screw it up. So we're kind of getting a little bit, in my mind, the paler is more like a snow cap kind of thing, I suppose. And then this further forwards. Yeah, I quite like that. Adding more interest. Right, let's do some ripping. So because this is wet, it does rip quite easily. Yep, I like that. I'm just going to cut it roughly across because I obviously want the neat edge at the bottom. So that's just, I'm going to trim that back when it's all dry. I just didn't want the whole page hanging in there. There we go. And I think we'll have another one of these. Oops, over here. I do love the effect of ripped paper, and when it's wet it just tears off so much more easily. I'll take that right the way down there. There we go. We can have that one there. Where did I put those bikes? Oh, here they are. Here's the bikes. Now the bikes are going to be on these larger hills, I think. At the back. I want to do something with the butterflies. What colour should I do them? I'm thinking gold. I don't want to do copper, and I don't want to do silver because we've got silver trees. So I'm going to do gold. I'll get my small brush for this. I get excited when I use this brush. It really has become my favourite brush. You can see it's well looked after in that I leave it in a pot of water all the time, so all the paint has come off because the wood has absorbed liquid. But it does what I need it to do, and it makes me smile because it's got a good point on it. I do occasionally think, oh, I must look after my brushes. It's always a brief thought, but it's there. And I think it's a case of do as I say, not as I do, because it is better to look after your products. I very, very rarely bin brushes. I usually manage to bring them back from the brink. I have very rarely had to bin them. I think I need it deeper. You can see the bits of paint flying off this now. Let's see if we can get... You know what, I'm not actually liking this gold. I don't think it's gold enough, it's not deep enough. I wonder if we mixed it with a bit of the copper, would we get a nice colour of the two mixed? One way to find out is to give it a go. It's going to tone down the copper colour but brighten up the gold colour. There's one way to find out. Oh yeah, that's better. It's got a bit more depth to it now. Now I've put on my layer of colour and then I'm stippling, and that's twofold reasons. One is because some of the little holes are filled up with paint, so I'm using the brush to get rid of the paint. But the other one is that it's adding texture to my butterfly, and you will know by now that texture for me is one of the most important things. So we've now got a textured butterfly. Right, where did I put the others? There they are. So we're just going to use the same colours on here. Now I haven't been told I can use a fine liner pen, which is bit scary for me. But I'm going to be good. I'm going to stick to the rules because I don't cheat on my challenges. I do what the rules say. Right, so we've got 3 butterflies. I'm getting to the point where I'm going to have to choose a sentiment as well. And the one I had in mind, I'm thinking, could actually be a little bit too big. Right, pop that in the water. I'm going to bring this down and tell you what I'm going to do. So I'm going to stick down things as they are, trim this back so we've got the base, dry off my butterflies and my flower and see where they're going to be positioned, and then I'll come back to you and I'll have found a sentiment as well. So I shall be back shortly. So now I have trimmed back all the edges. I've left them slightly rough, and that's intentional because otherwise it's too perfect, and that, if you know my style at all, is just not me. I don't do perfection. I will be using an ink pad around the edges at the end to just pull it all together. Right, how am I going to stick this on? I'm thinking I need a gel medium for this because it's domed, so I'm going to have to use a gel medium on top of that, and then we're going to have our butterfly on top there and our other 2 butterflies somewhere over here like this. Now I want to add more stuff. Let's see what we've got left. Oops, no, that's too big. Oh, we need to put the little handmade thing on. Oh, I think that'd look nice just there in the bottom actually. I want to put that on. I feel like I should put that on because it's what it's about. This is about being handmade. Now I've just come across this again, and if I get my knife, my nice new bladed scalpel, right, where's those pips? So you've got 2 options when you're removing things that have got pips in them. One is to twist until they fall out. The other is to just use a really sharp knife and you don't get the little lump that you would get otherwise. And my thought with this is I can actually have another. Why can't we have 2 suns? Have we got something that could make a 3rd sun? I'm thinking, no, that's too bulky. What about a heart under our butterfly? No. Oh, I've put the butterfly and everything away now. Didn't want to do that. What about having that over to this side? Oh, that looks better. It's balanced because we've got one on either side, but we've got the 3 butterflies, so that's pulling it together. Right, let's colour this up. Now this has no colour on it at all, so I'm going to start off with a bit of the black actually. Let me get my black brush. Actually, that's too big of a brush. Let's get a smaller brush to use with the black. And let's see how much it burps out this time. I always feel quite scared using this. I wonder if I could transfer it into another bottle or into another container. It would make it less scary to use. So I'm doing this just to keep it in keeping with the background. We don't want anything that's too stark, and the brightness of the white in this is very bright, so that's why I'm choosing to colour it black. It's going to give us a matte finish, so then the metallic paint I'm going to use the same way as I've used it onto this one. We're just going to use it to add a little bit of interest and colour and just bring back a bit of sheen from the starkness and the matte feel of the gesso. This gesso is very, very matte. Not all gessos are quite as matte as this. And one thing I would say with your paints is get to know them, figure out what your different paints do. So I've got other gessos that aren't as black, even though they're a black gesso, they're not as black as this one. Sorry, I'm very carefully trying to squeeze this without getting too much out. There we go, a little bit. It's more of a grey, my other one, whereas this one is more of a true black, which I like. Obviously sometimes I want the slightly greyer one as well. Right, I'm thinking I need to be a bit more brutal, because I want it to be inside all of it as well. So I'm now just basically being a little bit more brutal with my colouring and going around the edges as well. Remember what I said earlier about the fact that if you do this, lift your piece up quite quickly, because you don't want it to stick. You're basically using plastic around the edges and then it wants to stick, so move it before you do all of it so that it doesn't stick. I have lost many pieces over the years that have become too stuck to my mat due to using various products on them. So, lesson learned, make sure you move them. Another good one is when you're using gloss sprays, make sure you lift stuff out of the way as soon as you've sprayed them, because gloss sprays act like glue. I've lost a few pieces with gloss sprays, so learn from my mistakes. This has been a really interesting sort of challenge to do, because it's I don't do scenes like this ever. I don't ever recall making a scene like this, but I quite enjoyed it, and it's just what spoke to me. It's one of the things of doing these challenges is because you don't know what you're getting from the other person. It's interesting because it really gets your creative juices flowing. It's something that I sometimes do for myself as well when I do lives and things, is I set myself a challenge, and it's something that's worth considering doing in your creative world. Particularly if you lose a little bit of your mojo, is set yourself a challenge and say, right, what can I do using just these products, or just these colours, or just these brands. Choose what it is that you want to do, but be open about what you can then do with it, and it gives you a really good chance to play and to explore what you already have. We're always quite eager to get the new latest thing, and we quite often forget and mothball some really, really good products that we've had for a long time because it's not the latest. I'm as guilty as the next person for doing that, and I try not to now. I'm trying to be more realistic in what I do and trying to ensure that I'm actually using what I have. Right, so I'm going to use a little bit of the gold, and let's see if we can lift that colour a bit with the gold. And I'm going to look for a stippling brush, as I think that would be a better way of applying this. Oh, I really like how that looks. Bring that up to the camera. Can you see it's not quite covering all the black? So it just makes it look a little bit more worn, which is always good, making something look a bit aged. And the thing with acrylic paint is it can make paper, card, plastic, wood all look like metal, which is so clever. There we go. Do I want to add another colour as well? I'm going to add a little bit of the silver, just a touch, I think maybe in the middle, just as a central focus. Some odd little dabs around. Yeah, I like that. Looks good. Right, let's wipe up. I washed all of my raggies this week, and the number that I had when I was folding them all back, I was like, wow, I really do have quite a lot of these. And I use them all because they all end up caked in goodness knows what products. Right, I'm going to do something like that. Let's get some gel medium. Where is my tub of gel medium? No, you're not gel medium. One day I'll actually write it on top. I've written everything else on top, but not my gel medium. Okay. Spatula. And a bit of gel medium. So I only really discovered gel medium in the last 6 months or so. I didn't realise I needed it, and I was just saying about we all think we need the latest thing, but this is actually something that I find very, very useful, and you can see the fact that I've got an empty tub demonstrates that I do use it quite a bit. I now have, this one is my Pretty Gets Gritty one. I have another brand, I can't remember what make it is. I can't see it just at the moment, but I do have another brand as well. I'm not overly worried. You can see there's gel medium there in the holes. This gel medium does dry clear, which is why I'm opting for this one, because my other one doesn't dry clear because I went for a matte one. This is a gloss one, so it will dry clear. So I'm not overly worried about there being excess. And I'm going to use the gel medium to stick the butterfly on. So as I was saying, gel mediums are really, really good. That things like your ordinary acrylic glue will stick paper to, not acrylic glue, PVA glue will stick paper to paper, card to card, paper to card. When you're wanting to stick on other things, they can prove challenging. Now I have stuck on these just with PVA glue because they're quite light, and I kind of trust it for that. So it's a judgment call. Again, it's about getting to know your products. I trust that that will stick. But this is what I use then for things that are a bit heavier or require more of the surface to be stuck. So this one I'm just going to butter across the back of it. Just take some of that off and butter across, bearing in mind the whole thing isn't going to come into contact because of the design of it. So this is going to look messy now. So let's flip our butterfly and use the excess on the back of there. There we go. Pop this on to here. Pop my butterfly on top. I'll have that flying the other way. And then we need to stick our little handmade sign on. You can see I'm getting a bit low on this one. You can see the bottom of the jar. What I would say with any of your gel mediums is just make sure you're keeping your lids firm on them. If you let any air in, that you start getting dry areas. Make sure that's the right way up. And I'm just going to pop it there. I don't want it right to the end because I don't want to completely cover that. So I'm going to put it there. And I might, once it's all settled, add some little drops of paint into those holes if I can figure a way of doing it, because then it'll look like they've got screws in them. So yeah, what I was saying is you can get this is all quite dried on around the top, and it can become troublesome when it comes to opening and closing the jar, particularly if you get it around the outside, around where the lip is. But if you can try not to let it build up too much, I mean this is the end of the jar, so I've done quite well to only have that amount, but I do every so often clear out the edges both on the lid and the jar, just so that I can then open and close it a bit easier. because it is strong stuff, you can sometimes find that it's glued shut and you can spend a lot of time trying to open it up. Right, I'm going to leave that there for now to dry, and then I'm going to see if I can figure a way of popping something in there, and then I need to come back in with some ink around the edges and my sentiment, because we haven't got the sentiment on there yet, so I need to still ponder my sentiment. So I'll be back when this is all dried off. Right, so here we have the pretty much completed piece apart from a sentiment. So I've found a sentiment, it's a one-word sentiment, which I realised the ones that I was going to use were too big because they were probably going to cover most of that, which just would have been too big. So I've rooted out another one and I've come across this, and it says friendship is the most precious gift of all. So I'm thinking just friendship, because we've got pretty scenery, we've got trees, nature, going for a bike ride, couple of friends. Just made me think friendship was the best option. I have got happiness, love, home and heart as well, but I liked friendship. So I have done a cheeky little pre-stamp, because I was wondering, and I haven't done this bit because I wanted to do this on camera and see if it worked, and if not I can just take it away and do another stamp. But I was thinking just to use some of the acrylic. This embossing is actually giving us, it's more embossed on this side, it's like the deboss, it's letterpressed as opposed to embossed, so that means that the ink is sunk down into a lower area than the paper. Okay, so that means on the back we've got an emboss that we can then highlight. So I'm going to do it, usually I'd use a gilding wax, but if we try it over here and just see what we end up with. I don't know if it'll work. Oh, actually it's not too bad. Right, let's try it on top of the word, because I've purposely done this over an embossed area. Okay, I'm thinking that that's actually covering the writing too much. You can still see it, but it's not clear enough. So I'm going to do some highlighting, but I'm not going to use the silver because I don't like it. I'm going to go back to the copper, because I think the copper is going to be most in keeping. Let's just take a little bit, put a bit out on the mat. Let's do it that way, then we can just dip our finger in it. Okay, so if I do that first and then stamp over it, and then the ink is the top layer, so that means in theory it should stand out more. So the bit that's got the most embossing is here, so I'm going to do that. Oh, that looks alright, doesn't it? That looks loads better than with the silver. We're getting a really good image of the cogs there. I'm going to go a little bit further because I might cut some extra bits out there. I think that'll work, and then if we cut round the cog a little bit. Oh, what about let's bring this one in as well. I can always cut it off, but it's worth getting it coming into it colour wise, and then we can make an informed decision. Let's see where the stamp actually goes across it. I think that'll work. Right, so I have my VersaFine Clair, and I am going to endeavour to stamp without going on any of the other writing. So we'll do that to protect it, because that means we're going to get just the word we want. Let's take that away, and none of that's got ink on it. Yay! Just make sure that didn't get any. No, it didn't. Okay, quick stamp. Turn it round this way so that I'm holding the stamp block the right way. I'm going to put it there. And lift it off. That looks loads better. I'm happy with that. Okay, put that to one side. Quick clean up in aisle 5. Because there's quite a lot of paint here, I'm going to do it with a piece of kitchen towel rather than waste it. That goes over to one side and will get used at some point in a future project. Right, let's chop these out. I've no idea why I went around those ones. There's no intention of using those ones. I'll swap to my little cutty out scissors. Now I'm not going to be going into each bit of the individual teeth, because that would be a thankless task. I have done it on previous projects, but on this one it's a no. But I am going to actually use them as a bit of an outline as to where I'm going to cut, because I just think it's nicer than having just a bog standard rectangle. So let's add it a little bit of interest, there's that line again, and see how it looks. I think that's looking good. I'm liking it. Looks a bit different, doesn't it, because it isn't just a bog standard rectangle. Right, let's bring in the main piece. Right, there's something missing on that. I'm hoping it's just going to be a bit of edging. Let's try it with a bit of edging and see if we like it. Because what I don't want to do is put this on and then go, you know what, it ruins it. So we'll try this. Just edge it with the black. I need to re-ink my Stays On ink pad, so I'm using my VersaFine Clay to edge it, because my Stays On is a bit dry. If you've watched any of my other videos, you'll know that Stays On is my go-to for edging, because the little Stays On ink pad is really good to hold on to. But it's only useful if it's actually got ink in it. Right, I think I prefer that now. It's got a little bit of colour around the edges. Ooh, pick it up. Let's see. I don't know that I like this. I might just cut round that. I don't think I like that extra bit of cogginess. We'll leave it on one end but not on the other. So we need to get our ink pad again. Just finish that off. I'm just going to curve that edge a bit actually, because it just looks a little bit pointy. There we go. So I'm getting very close to that letter P, but it's fine. It's doable. Yeah, I think that's better, because it's not then covering up the bike. I'm going to stick that on with foam pads. Right, we then need the ink pad around the edges. You'll see there's still some white here because it's not entirely dry, but where it is dry it's gone clear. So I'm not worried, I know that's going to dry completely clear. Get my ink pad, I'm just bringing it around these edges a bit, just so they're not as stark. I'm not going too much onto the top, not looking to overly grunge it by going at it at that angle. Oops, I'm just giving it an edge. she says, and then thinks, oh, maybe I'll just... No, I'm not. I'm just edging it. That's all I'm doing, edging this bottom bit. That's it. That's it. I'm stopping. It's done. So I'm going to get my little list and make sure I've done what I've been told to do. So it says, use the MDF, black gesso, acrylic paints in copper, gold and silver, and one other acrylic paint of your choosing, which I haven't chosen one, but that's fine. One word stamp, done that. Use the other stuff that was there, and you can use an extra piece of card for the thing if you want to, but we ended up using the back of one of the pieces of paper. I'm really happy with that. I think that's come out. It's not at all what I anticipated I would make, but I actually really like it. And I love how this has come out by putting the black on and then colouring it up with the silver and gold. I love how we altered the colour on this one. If I had a black pen or a silver pen or something, I'd be putting little highlights onto each of these, which I suppose I could do with a little bit of gesso. In fact, I could do it with a little bit of silver. Yeah, let's do that. I always end up adding bits on. Right, I need a teeny tiny paintbrush. Let me find one of my teeny... That's a teeny tiny one. So this is a teeny tiny one. Very, very fine. So we're just gonna add, oops, a little bit of silver onto the body. That's apparently going to be a little bit spread out, but that's okay. Just means it's a butterfly that's had a bit too much chocolate. I don't know what I've used this brush for, but it's really stiff. Mustn't have had a proper clean. Yeah, that looks better, giving them bodies. So what I would do, as I was saying, if I could use gel pens or something, is actually add a bit more into the wings as well and put some highlights on. There's a chance I'd probably add something like cotton on as well, just to add a little bit more movement. But I'm quite liking how that looks. I did talk about putting some paint in here, but I think what I might do, I get the copper again, and I'm going to use my titchy tiny brush again. I'm just going to put a little bit around the edge, and all that's doing is just giving us a nod towards the fact that you can put a screw in there. It's not actually obviously putting a screw in. I'm not filling the hole like I thought I might. I'm just adding something as if there was a little bit of metal there. And that's fine. I'm happy with that. Right, I'm going to stop, not doing anything else to it. So I hope you've enjoyed that. Don't forget to nip over and see what Dawn has made on Shiny Silver Treasures. I will put a link down below so you can nip over there. I hope you've enjoyed this. We will be doing another one next month, and I believe it's my turn to set it, so I need to ponder what I'm going to include in it. And I will be putting this up on my other social media as well, so if you want to have a look at my other social media, I'm on Facebook as Angie B Crafts, I'm on Instagram as Angie Mary B, and hopefully I'll see you again. Thank you very much for watching. Bye for now.